Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update video. So let's just jump straight into it here. So as you can see, Avatar The Last Airbender, the 2024 calendar, we now have the images, including the back cover, which shows us everything. This, of course, is the notable thing with this calendar is the switch over from being novel focused to being comic focused. And my big thing was sort of like, I hope they don't just use the covers. I'd like to see them put in a little bit more effort, choose bits from the interiors and really make it look nice. But they've gone for more of the basic option here. They have just gone for the covers. Probably the most notable thing about it is probably just that like Azula in the Spirit Temple is included, even though the funny thing is that this calendar will actually be released before Azula in the Spirit Temple. Now, it was always going to be close. I think previously the calendar would have kind of come out like the week after this. Now the way it's going to work out is that like Azula is going to come out 2 weeks after this. But you can see what they've done here. There's a mix across like a little bit of everything. So you can see here you have some The Promise, you have some The Search. The bonus print is actually from one of the search parts, which is interesting. Smoke and Shadow you have here. You also have some of the Rift actually is included like twice here. North and South, of course, is the kind of cover for it, as well as being used here. We do have Imbalance get some use here, but then they do also kind of include the other ones. So Suki Alone, Toph Beifong's Metal Bending Academy, Katara and the Pirate Silver, and Azula and Spirit Temple. So one-shots get included, as well as the new the Team Avatar Treasury, the box set cover as well gets included here. So, you know, they're nice images. I think it will overall it'll look like a nice calendar. It's just not the most exciting way they've chosen to do it here. I actually do like the graphics for the actual calendar part of the calendar. That actually looks kind of nice and clean. I do like the way that works. So I'm probably going to grab this just because, you know, to have a calendar, of course, it's nice. And because you get the art print with them, I actually do kind of like getting them. They're not super expensive. So just to note about that, we now have sort of full information on what the calendar is. So if you want to place your order, now you know exactly what's going to be in this one. So that is interesting. Then Janet Varney, out of nowhere, got the chance to exclusively reveal to us the Diamond Select Toys Gallery Diorama Toph figure. Now, if you've been following Avatar merchandise, you'll know that this has probably been one of the most exciting lines for figures. These statues have been really good. They've done Aang, Katara, and Zuko so far, and everyone was waiting for the next one because we all sort of knew it was going to be Toph, even though they never directly said it was going to be. But because there was such a focus on the elemental effects on these characters, you just knew that that's the way they were going to do it. So here she is. So as expected, really nice, cool, detailed earth kind of base. It's a big kind of elemental focus here, which is very nice. Big chunks of rock. I think that gets across really nicely that she is breaking up this rock. It's a bit random, but you know, it's earth bending. That's what it's about. You also have the kind of like dust coming up from the rock kind of breaking apart. That effect I think looks pretty nice, and the painting kind of on this looks fantastic. Toph herself I think overall looks good. You can maybe question slightly the pose, just because I think when you think of Toph, typically you don't necessarily think of her doing like big earth bending kicks. Like, she's not Xin Fu kind of type thing. You know, it's not that she just never takes her feet off the ground or anything like that, but her style, you'd think something a little bit different than this would have been perhaps fitting for the character. Now, maybe from a statue point of view, they've maybe found it difficult to do in combination with earthbending. Like, how do you necessarily do some sort of an effect where it's Toph's specific style, and have her in a specific pose, whereas, you know, the big earthbending kick here makes for a nice statue. It's nice enough, and like, it's not that I don't think Toph would ever do this, but it's like Is it the ideal Toph pose? Perhaps not, but I think Toph herself is rendered kind of quite nicely here. The paint, the colors, the faces on these always look a little bit kind of interesting because it's the sculptor's kind of almost like specific style interpretation of the characters with slightly rounder faces. But with Toph, I don't think you notice it as much because her hair covers up much of her face. But what we can see, I think, looks pretty nice. There's just 2 more pictures for now. Just from slightly different angles. So it's kind of nice. You get a sense for how exactly the base kind of looks. And yeah, the Earth base is probably the best. Like, we haven't really seen Earth done that much in kind of figure form necessarily. This looks really good, and it sets a strong example for maybe future earthbending kind of statues. Now, the details that she posts here are that it's going to be $59.99, which I think is the usual price point. It might be $10 more expensive. I always get confused with these because, of course, like, I'm going to be ordering this from somewhere that will deal in euros, and that will kind of change it a little bit. But was the original American price point 50 on these? Because it's been basically 2 years since the last time they announced one of these figures. It has been a long time coming. Maybe there's been a slight price increase, but I still think that there's decent value for the quality and size for this figure compared to some of the other stuff that we have. Like, first 4 figures, the Aang is very nice, even the basic version of the Aang, but like, is it worth like nearly double the price of this? I'm not really sure. That's the kind of point here. I think there's a good value prospect here. Pre-orders are going to open Thursday at 9 p.m. PST, midnight EST. So that's going to be basically right in the early morning for me tomorrow. But you know, I don't think there'll be too much of a rush necessarily that you have to get your pre-order in immediately. But you know, places will start to list it for order soon. The other thing to note with this is that when they confirmed that there were more gallery dioramas coming, they did confirm multiple more that they're working on. Now, so I wonder what way they'll do it, because the Aang, Katara, Zuko were announced like relatively quickly back to back. Now, they were ultimately spread out releases a little bit over the kind of year and a bit that they released over. So the expectation probably should be that maybe the next one won't be too long away from being announced, and, you know, we continue with that. So, who's up next? They've done the obvious 4, 1 for each element. Is Sokka next, or will they continue to do benders? I'd like to see Sokka get a statue because I'd love to see how they approach doing Sokka. Of course, you maybe have a little bit more going on with him because he'll be holding his weapons, whereas the bender characters are typically just doing a martial arts pose, and the base is kind of doing the rest. But with Sokka, he might be holding some weapons. But then it allows him to kind of have a base that is maybe more just terrain rather than a crazy like bending effect type thing. And that could be interesting just by itself. They seem to be all doing sort of later series designs here. They've done Book 3 Katara, Book 3 Aang, Book 3 Zuko. This is you know, Toph's normal outfit. So will they do sort of kind of Wolf Cove or whatever it is, Sokka, like he's called in Avatar Generations, his kind of invasion outfit style thing, or what? There's a few kind of different options that they have here, but it's certainly interesting to see what they do. So yeah, Sokka will be an option. Suki, if they don't maybe go for the non-bender characters, then you're maybe thinking like Iroh or Azula probably would be the other two, because they know how popular they are. Those would be seen really well. And you know, you can see the idea. With Azula, it opens the door to a blue fire effect that they could go for. Lightning suddenly comes into play. Iroh is obviously such a well-loved character. You can do some interesting stuff with him. And again, lightning and normal fire is also interesting. And, you know, there's a few different options you can do. So, very exciting. I'm definitely going to be pre-ordering this because I'm a huge fan of this line. And ultimately, I haven't been ordering a lot of Avatar merchandise recently. So, I'm completely up for getting this statue, definitely. Then we have some Weiss Schwarz cards. So on Tuesday, we got some Appa cards revealed. So we have an uncommon Appa Flying Bison. We have the super rare version of the same card. So this is his kind of promo art version. You can see it's the same as my Displate Appa over here. So this is one of the newer pieces of art for Appa. So nice to see the card game using this as well. And then we have the common Appa Ready to Fight as well. So more yellow Appas, and I'm assuming that probably is most of the Appas, because I revealed a couple in my video where I got to reveal some cards. Now here's some more. Maybe there's like one more at maybe like a higher rarity, but I'm pretty sure that might be it, just because they've done the super rare one here. So pretty nice. Yellow's definitely doing some interesting kind of moving around type things. The reveals from yesterday were kind of interesting because I still don't know what fully to make of them, but there's definitely some cool flavor going on here. So some green cards, you can see 3 different versions in terms of the art of Judy Welcome to Ba Sing Se. And then the event card, There's No War in Ba Sing Se. So a few interesting things here. So straight away the Judy. None of these are alternate rarity versions. These are literally just at the same rarity. They are, I think this is card number 40, and you have 40A, 40B, and 40C. These basically will all have the exact same ratios, more or less. I don't think they split these apart too much. So basically, if you pull this card, you basically have a 33% chance to pull any of these arts. So you shouldn't have too much of a problem, you know, getting any of these. None of them should be rarer than the others necessarily. And the reason they've done this is because the first effect on this card says you can put any number of cards with the same card name as this card into your deck. So that's kind of crazy that you suddenly are allowed to break the kind of deck building rules with this card, where typically you're only allowed to play 4 copies of a single card, like with the same name. This allows you to break that. But the question is obviously, okay, why do I want to with this card? Why do I want to play over 4 copies, 5+ copies of Judy? Because look at the card. 002000. That's not a great stat line. It's an early card. 2000 is like very just straightforward, middle of the road. So it's like, it's a usable amount, but it's not good. Its first effect just allows you to break the limit to have multiple copies of it. So that's that. The other effect is just when you put a card on stage from hand, you pay the cost, which is 1 stock, and you search your deck and put onto the field another copy of the card, which in turn obviously activates the new copy you've put onto the field, and you can choose to do it again. So it means just by putting 1 copy on the field, if you have enough stock, you can get your whole field full of Judys. But if you have a full field of like 3 or 4 or 5 Judys, what are you doing with them? Because suddenly your field is full, and you just have 5 2000 cards that otherwise don't do anything. So what's the idea? Because There's No War in Ba Sing Se doesn't really combo with this card necessarily. Like, sure, there's the if you have 2 or less green characters condition, and this makes it so that you always have green characters, but it's easy to keep 2 characters on the field in Weiss Schwarz. Otherwise, it's just a relatively powerful card that puts cards back into your hand. So I think the idea here is that there's obviously going to be probably a Long Feng card at rare, which I assume will directly reference Judy specifically. And it will be like, you know, how, based on the number of Judys you have maybe on the field, maybe including your hand. Because the problem is, like, if you have Long Feng on the field, there's only 4 open slots. And you can obviously have 4 copies of any card. So there needs to be a thing that plays into the idea of potentially 5 or more copies of Judy. So does he just get power? Will there be a way to sort of like lower the power of cards on your opponent's side of the field? I think we're just waiting to see what the kind of finisher or the end goal is of this kind of strategy. But I like the flavor quite a lot here. I think there could be a fun green themed deck that maybe you're not full on Ba Sing Se conspiracy deck, but you know, you have a little bit of a element of your deck that is this. It could be interesting. The cards revealed earlier on today were a couple of Ira cards. So 3 different Ira cards. Iro Order of the White Lotus at uncommon, Iro Buffed at uncommon, and also the common Iro Leaves from the Vine. So we now have quite a few Iro cards as well. There's probably maybe still one or two more still to come, but there's obviously still a lot of other characters in red that we haven't seen yet. So this is quite interesting. 0, 1, 2, and I think we've seen a level 3 Iro, I think, already, if I remember correctly. But yeah, interesting stuff. There seems to be a lot of stuff focused on power with Iro adding power up to cards. So that's kind of interesting. But otherwise, like, they are relatively low level and a little bit sort of like generic, but they seem pretty solid overall. Yeah, so there should be some more cards revealed tomorrow, and then on Monday we'll get the next content creator reveal, which probably should reveal something a little bit more significant. Like, we're still early days in terms of like green and blue. We're a little bit further along in red. Yellow, there's still a lot of cards that probably need to be revealed, especially at the higher rarity. Like, I don't think we've seen a yellow double rare yet. So I don't think we've seen a double rares outside of red. So there's a lot of big stuff still left to reveal. I think we're only just up to about 30 cards so far. But anyway, last but not least, a quick update on Avatar: The Last Airbender for the Netflix show, live action. Netflix had their upfront yesterday, and basically they were going over their fall 2023 lineup, and the only mention of it is in this coming soon section, as you can see there. Avatar: The Last Airbender gets mentioned. I don't believe anything else was said at all about this, just that it's there. It's in coming soon, which I guess is a slightly new descriptor of it, but I don't think it really means all that much. Because obviously there's a few things here. Like, it's in the same category as, what am I familiar with here? Oh, look at that. Formula 1 Drive to Survive Season 6. So that will be the season covering the currently ongoing season, which is only really just started. So this is like a thing that will be coming out in like 9 months or something like that. 9-10 months, I think, is when this season is probably going to drop. So that gives you the sense that when they say coming soon, it doesn't necessarily mean a couple of weeks, which is what most people, when they hear something is coming soon, would assume it to mean. But obviously these companies, when they say that, it realistically means like 3 to 6 to maybe even 9 months is kind of, for the most part, what this means. So it effectively is telling us nothing new. This show still remains in this situation where it could release basically at any time from probably late summer, end of the year, and it could even be pushed back into next year. And I don't know, I'm just confused with this show. Why are they being so secretive about it? Why don't we have even a single teaser? Why is the only image associated with this show still that one image from, like, what was it, 2018 or something like that? That's just a piece of concept art. And even that isn't all that interesting, because it's not representative of the live action, like, at all. It is just an image associated with the live action. It is crazy that we have more imagery, even though it's leaked, from the 2025 movie, like, associated with that, than we do with this show. Even though this is an adaptation and the 2025 movie is going to be new content. I just don't understand. And I'm really at the point where I'm kind of like, I don't need to hear anything about this show anymore, unless it is the first look, the first trailer, the actual release date of it, and then the show itself. I don't need to hear all this other stuff about more actors being involved, more about, you know, creatively kind of what's going on in the background. I just want to see what this show is, to see if it's something I should care about or not. And I don't know, it's at the point now where you have two kind of paths with this. Why are they being so secretive about it? Okay, there's the very middle of the road kind of point, which is like, this is just Netflix. They don't really talk properly about things until much closer to the actual release, which is fair enough. But if you read into it a little bit more, are they so confident that they're just like, yeah, we can put this out whenever and it will be popular? Or is it actually leaning a little bit more into there's a bit of a lack of confidence, because it's a big project. Like, I think there's a lot of weight attached to this show to do well. And I think the general sense that we have from behind the scenes is that they're working on post-production at the moment, and I think they're trying to be as careful as possible to make sure the CG is very good, because they know that will probably be the make or break for this show in terms of if it looks good or bad, is if the bending looks good, if the environments look good, if the animals and stuff like that look good. That's what they kind of have to live up to. And if it's bad, it will kind of tarnish the show. Like, people will fall off the show immediately. And if it's good, it will make people care about the show. That seems to be where it's at the moment, where they're just in a state of, like, I guess they don't have an official release date, because the finishing up process on the post-production CG and stuff like that could potentially be done in a couple of months, but it could need a few more passes or whatever, and it could go into like 9 months. And I think that's just where they're at, where they don't really, I think they're probably worried a bit about when they finally do show it off, that it probably will turn quite a few people off if they get it wrong. And I think it's gotten into a situation where it's gone from, like, this should be a relatively easy sell to all of a sudden, we have to be so careful about how we show this off for the first time. And that's probably why they've been so careful about leaks. They don't want this stuff coming out there without them being in control of what it looks like. Because they don't have the benefit that, like, say, Avatar Studios sort of have, of, like, that image leaked out. But ultimately, the majority of the fan base was like, yes, that's exactly what I want. Because they did things in basically the way people wanted them to. The live action has a history of, like, they know this could greatly turn people off. They've already have one iteration at a live action, the movie, that most of the fans hate. So there's pressure on, even though production wise it seems like this is a massive improvement, but we have to wait and see. Book 1 is going to be a challenge, and the one main thing I've discussed on my channel in terms of my own videos on this has been, how will they break down those 20 episodes into the 8 episodes that we have here? How are they going to do that? That's going to be tricky. Like, there's a few of those episodes that seem like they write themselves, but the middle section, what do you do? What do you leave in? What do you leave out? And the fact that they seem to have actors for nearly every character except 1 or 2 is kind of like, whoa, this could be crazy with the amount of stuff that they're doing. Not necessarily in a good way as well. So, like, there's a bit of pressure here. So, I don't know. I just want a proper update on the Netflix show where I can finally come on and be like, here's how I really feel about it. Because I still am just in this position where it's like, it's a big project, so as an Avatar fan, I can't really ignore it. But the mere concept of Avatar live action doesn't blow me away. And it just hasn't ever really blown me away. So I'm just waiting to see them actually show off something to make me care about this. But yeah, that's been the video. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on everything that I showed off here. So the calendar finally fully revealed. The figure for Toph finally revealed after all this time. Some more interesting Weiss Schwarz card reveals. And then the slightest mention of the Avatar Netflix show officially. Not that it changes anything. But let me know what your thoughts are and all that stuff. But that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.